everyone, it's Sean from What Up, and welcome back to another video. Today we're talking Season 3 audition scripts for Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show. Now, this was breaking news way back in May from WotSeries.com, and I neglected to mention it on the channel. A few people have brought it up, and I've actually made a couple of videos on this, but they never saw the light of day. So we're going to talk about it today in light of all of the recent Season 2 news we have, which might give us a little bit more insight into what's going on in these clips. Now, if you're new to the channel, you don't know what we do here. We cover Wheel of Time show news, pretty much anything and everything about the Wheel of Time. That's what we talk about, from the mundane to the fantastical, the rumors and leaks, all the way up to the official news. So if you like that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe. I'm very close to reaching my 20,000 subscriber goal, which I wanted to hit prior to the release of Season 2 on September 1st of this year. We're literally 500 people away. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We're very, very close. All right, now, before we get into the video, I do have to give a bit of a spoiler warning so I don't ruin things for you folks. So, spoiler warning, since we are talking about Season 3 of Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show, if you haven't already read the first 4 books, that's The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, The Dragon Reborn, and The Shadow Rising in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, and have not already seen the first season, that's episodes 1 through 8 on Prime Video of The Wheel of Time, be forewarned, I may ruin plot points and character arcs from both of those mediums. I'm also going to be talking about known information about Season 2. So if you really want to know nothing beyond what's out there already, this probably isn't the video for you. All right, that being said, let's get on to the video. All right, so I left a link to the article down below in the description box if you folks want to take a read of it when you're done the video. But before we dive into the 2 audition transcripts that Wot Series does have in their article, I want to talk just a bit about the history of audition tapes with the Wheel of Time and maybe what we can expect. So, essentially, when Season 1 came out, we had seen a couple of audition transcripts prior to the first season coming out, and we weren't entirely sure what to expect at all, because audition tapes are kind of tricky. Essentially, it's when an actor and actress records themselves with a snippet of the script provided to them by the company, and they try to sell themselves to the casting company. Essentially, that's what it is. Now, usually, it isn't a final, polished version of the script, so they're not going to get something that you'll see on TV. Not normally, anyway. It's possible. It has happened in the past where you get a couple of auditions that are pretty much bang on to what you see on the screen, but it's kind of rare because the scripts usually go through a ton of revisions, and they're living entities during a production. So essentially, they can be changed prior to filming, during filming, and even after filming for reshoots. So the fact that you're going to get a bang-on rendition on screen is not entirely always going to happen. So when we seen those auditions for Season 1, we weren't quite sure what to expect. Lo and behold, they were fairly accurate. When I say fairly accurate, they were like 90% plus accurate to what we see on the screen. It was pretty close. I was a little surprised, and I think everyone else in the fandom that had followed the news prior to Season 1 coming out was also surprised, because that's not something you normally see. Usually you'll see one of 2 things, and these things are either some version of the script that the actor or the actress will read that will then be revised and rewritten and changed a bunch, so when you finally see it on screen, it'll be similar, but not exactly the same, or you'll see something completely different. They'll read something that is in the vein of the character that they're basically trying to go for, but it may not ever be filmed for the show or the movie. Either way, they were pretty accurate for Season 1. So when we saw the Season 2 audition tapes, we were all kind of wondering, is that exactly what we're going to see on the screen? We don't know just yet. After September 1st, when the second season comes out, we'll know a little bit more about the process. But right now, all we have to go on is all of the audition scripts that we've seen for Season 1 were pretty close. So we can go by, maybe these will be kind of close for Season 3. Either way, they'll give us an idea of some of the characters and the settings for Season 3. All right, so for the very first audition transcript that Wot Series has there, it's between an Aiel and another person. Now, we don't have names, so we're not entirely sure who they are, but I'll make my guesses when I'm done here. The Aiel says, "Keep up, Wetlander, we're nearing water." The person says, "What happened?" The Aiel says, "A fight with the Shiodu clan over the spring, judging by the wounds. Many have woken from the dream in this place." Person says, "We should bury them." The Aiel says they're not worth the time or the stones. It's their own fault they're dead, and if those who are killed are near, even more reason to get moving. Person says, "I thought the Aiel were supposed to respect their dead." The Aiel says, "They are not Aiel, and I am respecting them. The Tuatha run from battle, refuse to defend themselves or those they love. They choose to die for their way of the leaf, and if we don't move now, we may end up rotting there beside them. My power is strong, but I cannot take in the full force of the Shiodu." Now, it's pretty interesting because this is between an Aiel and someone else. I'm going to guess it's probably a wise one, mainly because there's a reference to power there. Now, I would love to think this is Amis, because I think that it's likely that in the show we're only going to get a few wise ones. In the book series, there's tons of them, and there's actually quite a few very important ones, but Amis is one of the ones that is very central to a lot of different plots in the book series. So I'm wondering if maybe they're going to amalgamate a bunch of wise ones into one or two characters, so we only have a couple of them, maybe one per clan or one per section of the Aiel. Maybe we'll only have a couple of clans of Aiel, we really don't know. But what I do know is they're not going to cast 100 wise ones. They're just not. So we're only probably going to get a couple, and we're probably definitely only going to get a few with speaking lines on screen. So Amis, I think, is a very strong choice for who this is, especially since they're talking about the power. It's entirely possible that it could be them. Now, person 2 in this, who could they be? I'd like to think that they're Rand. I'm not entirely sure. I kind of toss up between Rand and Egwene, one or the other, because we know for a fact that Rand is going to go to the Waste at some point in the book series, but so does Egwene when she learns that she is a dreamer and she's going to be going to the Aiel to learn how to dream. So chances are this is a wise one of some flavor. I don't know who it could possibly be, and either Rand or Egwene in this particular scene. Either way, this shows that we're likely getting central plots in the Waste for season 3. Which I'm not terribly surprised at. Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, has already hinted that season 3 will likely center mainly around, well, maybe not mainly, but will center heavily around the battle for the Two Rivers. And we've seen a lot of leaks to the effect that that is probably going to be happening very soon, at least the filming for it, because they're rebuilding Emond's Field as we speak, and they're filming in different locations right now. And there is, right now, actually came out, I believe yesterday or the day before, a casting call for villagers and soldiers for the Wheel of Time. So because of that, we're likely looking at them filming scenes for Emond's Field very soon, if not by the summer. So I think that's very neat. Either way, I think we're probably going to get roughly split between Emond's Field and the Waste for all of season 3. And we're probably going to have half the characters in Emond's Field, half the characters in the Waste, which means we may get a few more characters in Emond's Field than we did in the books, because I don't think they're going to do 3 or 4 or 5 point of views like they do in the book series, because not only does it get confusing, they just don't have the time to split the story that many ways for the 3rd season. All right, so the second scene comes straight from the Battle of the Two Rivers, and I think this is going to be a major part of the second season. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to split it roughly between that and the Waste. That's my guess anyway. So Wot Series couldn't get an absolute transcription of the scene, but they did get a description of it. I'm going to read that to you now. So the scene takes place between a Two Rivers farmer and Perrin, who are talking late at night. The farmer says he needs to return to his farm because Lord Luke has instructed them to do so. They have an argument over whether this is reasonable, as Perrin believes Lord Luke isn't to be trusted, since he's an outsider and could just abandon them at any time. The farmer retorts that while things are different now, at least they have protection. He's frustrated at being ordered around by Perrin, who he's known since birth. He reminds Perrin that they're farmers, not fighters, which he'd remember if he hadn't been gone for so long. Now, I like this scene. I'm not going to lie to you. I was very excited when I read the description of this scene because it seems like it's lifted directly from the book. Now, The Shadow Rising is arguably one of the best Wheel of Time books. It is certainly where the series picks up and becomes something better, if that makes any sense. The first 3 books are good, don't get me wrong, but Shadow Rising is an absolutely phenomenal book, and it sets the tone for a lot of the rest of the series. A lot of the scenes in there, especially the character building between Perrin and his friends and family from Emond's Field, are absolutely essential to Perrin's character then and much later on in the series. So seeing him interacting with people from Emond's Field makes me very happy. I would love if we get even a smidge, a tidbit, maybe 10% of what we've seen in The Shadow Rising from Emond's Field in the series, in the show. I think that will be enough because there's so much there, but there's a lot of character building for Perrin. Now, to be totally fair, the first season, one of the critiques I had for it was there wasn't enough character building. They didn't spend enough time with each of the characters. They did, however, get to spend a smidge of more time, I would say, with Perrin, although his character was not developed in the least bit, other than the first episode, him fridging his wife, which I didn't like or agree with at all. And a lot of the fandom sort of agrees. Some people are on board with it. I certainly wasn't. I do agree it was a way to show his inner turmoil, and his hesitance towards violence, but I think there was much better ways to do that. Either way, I'm excited for some actual real character building with Perrin, because in the first season we didn't get to see much of that, and I think in the second season we probably will get a little bit more, But until we see Aiel and him interacting with the people in Mount Ammon's field and actually seeing the apple trees, if you know what I'm talking about, you know, I think that's when we get fully formed Perrin, and I'm very excited for that. Now, let me know your thoughts on these two scenes down below in the comments. Do you think they're going to be lifted word for word like they are here? Kind of like what we've seen with Season 1? I kind of hope they are, because I like both scenes very much. Or do you think they'll be changed or rewritten or a little bit different, or they'll be completely out to lunch? Now, we've speculated before that Lord Luke will be in the 3rd season. In fact, I did a casting video a couple of weeks ago based on someone that, oddly enough, is called Luke, that Wot Series had dug up, that will be in the 3rd season of the Wheel of Time, that looks exactly like Yosha Stradowski. Either his real father, or perhaps it could be Lord Luke, because that's a cousin of his. Either way, I think it'll be very interesting to see what's going on there. And I think for sure we're getting Lord Luke. So a lot of people thought he'd be cut, but I think we're going to get him for sure. Even if the scene isn't exact, I think we're going to see him. He is a really interesting character. Slayer is an amazingly interesting character, and I want to see a lot more of him throughout the show. Just like Pat and Fane, I want them to build them both up to reputable opponents, because in the series there was a lot left to desire there. A lot of backstory, a lot of different little tidbits that really would have went well with both of those characters. I want to see that in the show. Either way, let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comments. And I want to thank you very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.